There's basically two types of topical applications that you can do. They have different modalities of function. One is a compress, and compresses push in, poultices pull out. So there are two different techniques that the substances use. So one compress that I'm familiar with, we just got done talking about the heating compress, so hot being pressed in. So that's the just going into the tissues, is a castor oil compress. So you can take castor oil and put it onto a wool cloth and then bind it onto wherever it's needed to go in. And the castor oil compress is really beneficial for bumps, lumps, and adhesions. And it helps to break them up over time. And it's something that it's not a rapid thing, but it's a consistent thing that can help with. So this spring, I had a group that I was doing some outdoor school with, and I took them off in a kind of it wasn't even out in the woods really. I mean, it was just kind of a little booty crash loop off of a field. We were looking at lichen, and the next morning, I looked in the mirror, and it kind of hurt right here. It looked like I run into a pointed stick. I was like, what's up with that? And I looked at it more closely. I went and got my glasses and put my glasses on and looked at it, and it was a tick. A tick was just like right here, and it looked like it looked like I ran into a pointed stick. I was like, all right, what do I do? What do I do? Okay. So I looked in one of my books, and one of the things that it suggested was using like lavender oil, essential oil, on it, and it would back out, because you don't want to leave their mouth parts in when you pull them off. You want them to pull them out with them, or to completely extract that part from them. So I put lavender oil on it, and by the time I got Becky to agree to pull the tick off, it was practically like had released itself and was pulling free. So the lavender oil really worked to discourage it and move it away. Someone was telling me over the weekend that anything you can do that like takes away its oxygen supply will help it do that. You don't want to kill it with its mouth parts in you, or leave anything behind, but the whole tick extracted itself and was getting away from the agitation or the irritation. But I still have a bump there, and that was like, I don't know, it was probably a month ago now. I was surprised how it continued to swell up, and I did try to use a castor oil compress on it. It was just a little difficult. So depending on where it is, I had it here, and then I had like this hanky appliance thing that I tried to wear for a while. It probably helped some, but other lumps and adhesions, like after surgery, if you have an intestinal or abdominal adhesion from where that took place, it can help to break that up and release that, because those adhesions can make mobility difficult, adhering body wall material together. Many natural remedies do. They have a dual nature to them. In fact, it's like immunomodulatory, I guess you would say it. So if your immune system is upregulating excessively, it can bring it down. If it's not up high enough, then it can bring it up. So an example of that would be like maca root, which is it's a South American root that's actually helpful as an adaptogen, and it was first noticed by the Aztec, not the Aztec, but the Cortez and his men found that their horses were doing well at altitude when they were eating the maca plants, and it actually helps with altitude assimilation of oxygen. So an adaptogen is something that adapts to the need of the body. So for example, if your immune system is overactive, it helps to tame it down and calm it down. And if it's underactive, it helps to bring it up. So immune modulator, and maybe the other one. So that's another kind of word for the same thing. So an adaptogen is the substance that does that, and immune modulation is upregulating or making it more active or less active. So we just did something here the other day, which was helpful in our home. One of our daughters was having some congestion, some issues, some sinus pressure in their head, in their ears. It was just really, really irritating. And so an onion poultice, the power of an onion poultice is really good. But again, it's a plant, so it does it over time, right? So it doesn't necessarily have an immediate response. But to make an onion poultice for the ear, for example, you would just take your onion and chop it up. And then you can just lightly saute that onion. It doesn't even have to be sauteed. It's just warmed and softened in a little bit of water on the stove. So you want it to be nice and soft. And with any allium, so that's the onions and garlics and leeks, when you cut them up, if you cut them and let them rest a little bit, it amplifies their antioxidant capacity. So it makes them more potent and more powerful. So I kept this in a glass jar because onions pull. And if you keep it in a plastic, it has a plastic lid, but the face down inside of a glass jar, it's not going to be pulling any contamination from the container it's stored in. So that's why it's best to store things in glass if you can. So even a mason jar or a leftover jar from any other thing you might have bought, you could use them for storage of any kind. So soften this up, get it nice and soft, and then you would build a pack out of it. So this has been on the stove a little bit and softened up in the container here. Then you can drain off the juice, just use a little strainer, and that onion juice, that broth, save that because you can just sip that as a nice warm tea because that onion is really rich stuff. You don't want to let that go to waste. And then once that's soft, you can do a raw poultice too. But for something like an earache or a sinus congested earache, something warm is actually soothing as well. So then just tap that out, put that into your gauze or your cloth, your cotton cloth. And you don't want it to be too hot. So if there's any moisture in there left, you can squeeze that out a little bit into the sink. And then I just do it like an envelope. You can't quite see there very well. But just fold those edges over. You can press that down. Make it the size of the area you're going to place it. So again, this was on the ear, but it can be used for anywhere that you need to draw toxins out of. So any kind of a wound or something that needs to be healed. And so this is like triplicate or quadruple thickness on top. You want to use a surface that has just one layer because that's going to be closest to your area of need. And then for our application, our daughter just put it on her ear and then put a bandana on like a headband, right? So I don't know if I can do this because I'm a guy, right? But it goes under here like that. And then she wore that all day for several days, at a time. And it was just held there with the bandana looking like Aunt Jemima or whatever. But just a headband. And that drew over the course of time, I think it was 4 days. And yesterday morning, I think it was, it's like, it doesn't hurt anymore. It's not there. I mean, she was kind of waking up very kind of distressed with that. It had kind of been going on for a little while. And so, all right, let's do an onion poultice. We've been out of town and didn't have everything with us. So a poultice pulls, a compress pushes. So onion poultice is really good for that, and that's something that you have around, usually for just culinary purposes, but very good for any kind of wounded thing too. And then, yeah, that's what this is for. You can do the same thing with charcoal and flax. You probably used that before. So the flax basically extends the ability and helps the paste and helps the charcoal to actually kind of adhere to something and not just be. Charcoal is so light and fluffy that it's hard to get it to go where you want it to go.
Hard to wet.
Yeah. So the flax acts as a wetting agent and as a.
Is that ground flax?
It's ground flax. Yes, you want to use ground flax, and just enough to make a paste. So it depends on how much. If you have a large area, you're going to use more flax. Charcoal is really, really powerful. I probably didn't use enough charcoal in here, but just mixing it around, and I could add some more.
What do you think the ratio of flax to charcoal? Quarter charcoal and 3/4?
Yeah, maybe. I don't follow recipes too well when I cook.
I'm just trying to get a gist.
I'm a shake and baker.
No, I am too, but I'm just trying to get a gist.
Yeah, I would say maybe a teaspoon to a tablespoon of charcoal to flax. So basically, the flax is just there to make a paste, because the
Charcoal adheres.
I'm sorry, that's right. So the flax is what makes the paste and adheres to that. Whereas if you just did charcoal alone, it doesn't paste super well. So it makes it paste easier. And then you can do that directly, or again, actually one thing that works really well for the charcoal poultice is coffee filters. So some people have to go out and purchase a pack of coffee filters because you don't have them at home, and get them for poultice purposes, but other people may actually have them around for regular use. But then you just put that paste into your coffee filter, and you can use a rag or paper towel or anything. This is just kind of a convenient package in which to place it, and then you can just fold it over again, kind of like you did before. Again, the top one's going to have multiple layers, and then your active face is the thinner layer, and then you can put that on and bind it on somehow, maybe with your figure eight. Or so a few years ago, I think it was end of 2019, early 2020. I think the individual may have passed away from early toxicity before it was known what it was. But he went into kidney failure, and I was like, this guy, he ended up in the hospital, but I was like, you need to do just a whole kidney layer charcoal poultice to just kind of draw things out. But by the time there was any, application of natural remedies, he was already under the care of the hospital system. And it's hard to do that when they're already under the care of a physician. Is that true in your experience? To do that, but I think
Problem with us physicians.
yeah. You do everything you can. They did everything they could, and he died. He was a burly guy. He was a construction worker, and he went into kidney failure and sepsis. And so I don't know if I'm sure it would have helped. It may not have saved his life, but it might have saved his life too. To do a kidney level charcoal poultice, because it'll draw a lot of stuff off. It's an amazing the drawing properties of charcoal. So charcoal, always have that around. What can you do? Bleeding. We've talked about bleeding. So you have your yarrow. You can just do just a quick yarrow poultice. One thing about yarrow is it is such a good healer. You want to make sure your wound is clean, because it'll start the healing process right away. And if your wound is dirty, it does have antibacterial properties as well, so it can help with that. But make sure it's as clean as possible, so that there isn't a chance for infection. The leaves, actually all aerial parts, so everything above ground you can use. Another one that you can use is self-heal. So this is these are the blossom stalks from last year. And this is a potted one, but it's actually, it looks a little anemic here. Most of them are self-heal. Yep. Prunella is the genus, self-heal. Prune, E-L-L-A, prunella. That's the genus of it. But they said that carpenters who weren't careful carried this in their toolbox, because they have very sharp tools and they would nick themselves, and they would just have powdered self-heal. They could probably use yarrow too, but self-heal may be better, but it has a similar mechanism. And these are wild. We have it growing around. So let's see. I'll think of something to give you if you find some self-heal wild. The kids are, I'm sure some of you guys can do it with the top of a hat. But so we dry it. You can use it as a poultice. You can actually use it as a tea as well. But it's a cold infusion. So a cold infusion is the tea that has been soaked and brewed cold, as opposed to a hot infusion, like a hot tea. So there are some that do better. Another one that does better cold is cleaver, or the sticky weed, sometimes known as chicken foot. It's just this line of kind of long, viney thing. I don't have any. We have lots of it here, but I didn't bring any in. If you throw it at somebody, it sticks on them. It's like Velcro. It's like a stick tight. It's really kind of a noxious weed. Not noxious, but it's become my friend, and we have too much of it around because I all of a sudden know what to do with it. And it's like, I want to save that now. It's hard to weed.
What do you do?
So it's good for, it's called cleaver or chicken foot. There's lots of different things. One of the things it's useful for is it has some anti-cancer properties. Let's see if I can find. So this book here is a resource that I've found really helpful. It's called The Lost Book of Herbal Remedies by Nicole Appelian. 171 and 172. This is cleaver or bedstraw, another one. So Gallium aperian is its genus and species, but Gallium gallus, I believe, is the chicken's genus and species. So chicken foot. So most scientific names have a descriptive element to them in some fashion, whether it's the plant or the person who found it. Sometimes they do that too. But Gallium is because it's sometimes called chicken foot. Because of the way the leaves look like a chicken footprint in the ground. So skin disorders, acne, psoriasis, eczema, skin rejuvenation, body detoxification and lymphatic system drainage, kidney stones, UTIs, prostate, cervix, and bladder, neck, and head and skin cancer, breast cancer, that can be helpful. Chickenpox and measles and fevers. So it's a febrifuge, which means that it brings down a fever. So it can help with that. Tonsillitis, and also bleeding, stopping bleeding. Freshly picked cleavers are excellent for stopping bleeding in wounds, cuts, or other surface bleeding. Apply the leaves directly to the wound and helps reduce inflammation and speed healing. And you can use a poultice for larger wound areas. So that's sticky weed. But lots of different ways to apply those things. Let's see. So a few years ago, I have some bees. I keep bees, and I was working away in my bee suit, and I inadvertently left. I didn't quite get the Velcro closed on my neck, and a bee came in and stung me right on the nose in my bee suit with my gloves on, and I'm in the middle, so I'm just like, ah. And I got this bee that's in there and it's got me. But when I got done, I went to my garden quick, and it's just growing around, and picked a leaf of plantain. So this is broadleaf plantain. It was also known as white man's footprints. because it followed the settlers all across as they were moving and migrating across. But just grab this and pulverize it and use it for a poultice. The quickest way to pulverize it is how do you chew it? And it's a fibrous chew. But as you're chewing it, it releases the juices. This has a bunch of little ones growing around it because this is a seed pod from last year. But once you have it macerated, then you can take it out and put it on your bee sting or whatever else it is, and put your glove back on. Or in my case, what would I do on my nose? I guess just hold it there. But your plantain poultice will help to draw bee stings out. We've used that a number of times. I think you can use it for nettles maybe and other insect bites and stings. It also has a multitude of other benefits. Plantain is it's spelled like plantain. You say it plantain. There's a narrow leaf plantain and a broadleaf plantain. The narrow leaf plantain has a long spike with a tall flower at the top, or a little flower bunch at the top, and then lanceolate or very narrow leaves that come up as opposed to the broad leaves. Plantain, so it's edible. The leaves and seeds are edible. It's helpful for autoimmune and leaky gut, toothache. Direct application of plantain to a toothache or dental infection can be helpful to reduce the swelling and pain. Sore throats and swelling gums. Intestinal worms and inflammatory bowel disease. So you can use the plantain seeds for relieving intestinal worms. And that's largely because of the fiber. Have you ever heard of carrots as being a dewormer? So shredded carrots can be helpful for that. So high fiber. Another good reason to have fiber in your diet is to help expel intestinal worms. So drinking a plantain tea twice a day is the way that's recommended here. You can take them fresh or dry. So this is a box of herbs that I've collected here around the property and other places. I think there's other things in here too, but right here is some dried plantain leaves. So this is dated 2020. This is probably very reduced in its medicinal qualities because over time they're going to reduce. So you should kind of keep a rotating stock of your plants, but using something rather than nothing is better than nothing. Let's see. So here's some self-heal that's been used, not used, but dried. Comfrey. So comfrey is great for all kinds of things too. It's particularly noted for helping bones knit. Cayenne. So pulverized cayenne is good for bleeding as well. So you can use yarrow, you can use cayenne to staunch bleeding, the chicken's foot. So lots of different things. Oh, here's what I was looking for earlier today. Yeah, so here's yarrow blossoms. So this is dried yarrow. You could just take that and rub that in your hands and it would powder it, and then you could put that onto a wound. Not a deep wound because you don't want to accelerate the healing of a puncture wound. You would rather have it grow from the inside out than the outside in. And so maybe doing a drawing poultice or some other compress to help regenerate the tissues from the inside out would be the best way to do that. And there's a whole multitude of other types of poultices that one can do. Those are just a few basic ones, something from kitchen things. One other one that I'll mention here quickly before we transition here is another household one that we can do that is pretty basic. It can be household or outside, depending on where you are. And that's the poultice that's made from a fairly readily growable thing, and that's cabbage. So cabbage makes a great poultice. So generally speaking, the darker the vegetable, the better it is because of the antioxidants and anthocyanins. A red onion, yep. So one of the onion species, I have red Zeppelin. Red Zeppelin is the onion species one of them that I grow, because of its deep, dark red color. So the cabbage poultice is excellent. Again, the darker it is, I mean, you can use whatever you have, but if it's darker, it's better. And then the idea is you want to, before you use it as a poultice, you need to bruise it. So you got to really get it juiced up, get it exuding some juice. So another form of cabbage that is actually very good too is one that you might actually use on a sandwich. What's that?
Mustard. So you're saying pretty much any of the brassicas could be used in this way?
Probably, yeah. I was thinking sauerkraut. So you shred it and kraut it, and so you could even go as far as get that bruised up really good. Ow! Oh, what do I'm just kidding. So, yep. So keep a hammer in your poultice kit. So you just want to get it really bruised up and get it juicing, and then you can package that. I would probably get it a little juicier, but for the sake of our time here. So this is a used one. What do you think this was used for? This is actually turmeric. So we used turmeric, ginger, and cayenne on my knee a few years ago. I fell off a roof, strained my knee really bad. I said in my head silently, there goes my running days. I'm just done. My knee's just ripped up. But thankfully, Becky assessed it, and there was no torn ligaments or anything like that. Really grateful for that. But used a number of different things. And one of the things that we did was a turmeric, ginger, cayenne poultice on my knee. And after a year or so, I would say a good strong 9 months, fully functional. Praise God. Just completely back to normal. So you could put that if there's more juice in the package, you could probably just put that on straight without having to actually even put it into the packet. But then you can put that on your wounds. So leg ulcers, joint pain, wounds. It's good for skin cancers. So this cabbage leaves work well to help clean wounds and prevent infection. Reduce swelling of painful joints. So chop and crush the leaves. So if you're doing like kraut, you can slice them and chop them and just use a mash. So that's going to release even more juice than the bruising. So kind of the chopping, and then you could use the rolling pin to just kind of extract more of the juice out of it. So it has a wide variety of applications for joints. It's actually the number one usage for the author of this book for engorged and engorged breast and mastitis. A poultice made from cabbage leaves, cut and put inside of the bra to help keep the breast from getting inflamed. So you want the leaf intact but badly bruised to access the healing sulfide compounds that are present in this, and that's true for, like you're saying, all brassicas. So that's the cabbage poultice. So remember, poultices pull and compresses press, right? And there's a great resource that Becky was using here too this morning. If you don't have this, you might look into getting it. It's Vance Farrell's Natural Remedies Encyclopedia. Vance Farrell's Natural Remedies Encyclopedia. Ferrell.
And then it's natural.
It's the Natural Remedies Encyclopedia. And there's a list of 22 useful poultices in here. Number one on the list is, and I don't know if this is, I think it's alphabetical, is a cabbage poultice. So you can do garlic poultices, potato poultices, carrot poultices, comfrey poultices. So they're good for open sores and wounds or swellings. So what did Hezekiah, what did he use as a poultice? Figs, right? Flaxseed on its own, as well as with charcoal. Ginger, so I used ginger, hops, oatmeal. We did onion and plantain poultices. Rice, soak whole rice in a small amount of water, cook it briefly or discard the water and crush the rice into a paste. And you can apply that to a wound. Slippery elm, you can even use tofu as a poultice. So squeeze out the soy cake, add a teaspoon or so of wheat flour, apply to the inflammation, and alternate this poultice with hot ginger to help reduce pain. So lots of different ways and foods that we can use externally in a poultice form as well. Sometimes you may have something just in the raw form, and then in order to really access it, you do need to bruise it. If it's in the dry form, because plantain dies away over the winter, right? So it's not going to be out in its growing foliage form, leaf form. So having it dried over the winter, you'd have access to the healing properties from the tea or the loose leaf dried form that you couldn't access under the snow unless you had a potted plant inside or something like that. So that allows you to have the benefits of them through the seasons. There probably is research that talks about whether fresh is better, and some applications are more useful. So cabbage, I don't know how that would work dry. But you kind of use what you have. In fact, there's Anne Wigmore. She, I think, was the founder of the Hippocrates Institute. She was really big into wheatgrass juicing. You may have heard her name in connection with that, but she grew up in a war-torn Baltic state, and her grandmother was the local healer, and she didn't have anything to work with, but she pretty much healed everything that they encountered with two things: grass poultices, grass, and goat's milk. That's what she had, and that's what she used. I don't know that I would recommend goat's milk necessarily, but there was some healing constituents to that in some way. And the grass poultice is the chlorophyll is going to be beneficial. And I mean, that's what they had. So they used grass of different types to help heal all kinds of things.
To be aware of new videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.